Hi guys and welcome back to the channel. Today I got the tank review for the brand new FV3903, the Churchill AVRE. Yes, another AVRE. Is it any good? Not really. Not particularly, because you are very slow, your armour doesn't really work, and your derp gun isn't even that good, realistically. It's got nice penetration on the HE, but on the whole, yeah, it's just not that great a tank to play. You may as well, especially when it's at tier 7 and the Dreadnought exists, my quick review for you in the first 30 seconds to first minute would be, don't buy this tank, go buy a Dreadnought, because the Dreadnought does exactly the same thing, but better, because you have better penetration on your AP and your heat rounds, which are 250, which are dirty, and then you can use the standard 910 damage HE as well, which is, again, absolutely dirty. This thing doesn't have that ability. It's got good penetration on the HE, but you generally have like 700 odd alpha on the standard round. We'll have a look in a minute. And then you've got 600 on the premium with like 155 pen, which again is good pen. And you'll pen a lot of the lower tier medium tanks, light tanks, some of the heavy tanks. But generally, on the whole, you will just be splashing things a lot. And when you're hitting them, generally it's been splashing for about 200, unless you hit like a really weak plate. So yeah, this is the first upload of the new year. So again, Happy New Year, everybody. Thank you for following the channel in 2023 and all that sort of stuff. It's very, very kind of you all. And also, I'm sorry for the lack of uploads over Christmas, but I did get the flu, which completely wrote me off for all of Christmas and up till now. Still coughing a lot, so do bear with me, because if you do hear a momentary pause of silence, it's me muting my mic to cough my ass off. Yeah, so, yeah, sorry about the lack of uploads and stuff like that. If you do appreciate this video, please don't forget to like the video down below and subscribe and all that good stuff. You know, the typical YouTuber thing. And, yeah, we'll get into the statistics of this Churchill AVRE for you and show it off in the replays and stuff like that. So, without further ado, let's go have a look at the stats. So, in terms of statistics, the tank has a 350 horsepower engine with a 25 km/h top speed, 12 km/h, English is hard, 12 km/h reverse speed, with 8.6 horsepower per ton ratio, which is slow. It's slow. This is a Churchill. If you know the Churchills, you know it will be slow, and this tank is very slow. And that is pain, because there's a lot of the time you spend time driving to get to the battle, and at tier 7 the battle's already gone. It's just dead. And you get there, fired 1 or 2 shots, splash for like 200, die. That's generally been my experience of the Churchill AVRE. If I've had a good game, usually it's my team's loses pretty quickly, but I've managed to get to a position where I can just keep firing, and I've managed to farm damage. And then I die. Or the enemy team's silly and just do silly things, because it is a derp gun. It will punish stupidity. But generally, if you play fairly smart against this thing, it's not like a Centurion AVRE that will delete you. This thing will not really do anything to you at all. You do have a 20% internal fire chance, which is on the high side. And again, this thing does get set on fire a decent amount, just like all the other Churchills, that if you get shot in the rear or in the back end of your tank, your engine will get damaged and you will get set on fire. That's just something you've got to bear with the Churchill AVRE. It's just something you've got to bear with all the Churchills, sadly. And yeah, it's something to bear in mind. You do have 1,500 hit points, though, which is a good slab of hit points to be able to slap the enemy team with. You know, because you can just take a hit for 200 and then dish out a 300 damage alpha bomb, really. Or you can just go and then penetrate them, depending on what you're shooting at. You can also have a 22 degrees a second hull rotation speed, which is pretty slow. So bear that in mind, that your hull rotation is fairly slow, just like all the other Churchills. If you're trying to turn on a sixpence, it doesn't do it very fast. You got 2.3 on soft, 1.3 on medium, and 1.1 on firm on the terrain resistances, which aren't the worst for a heavy tank, realistically, but it's something you might want to help out. And yeah, you've got 377 meters of steel concealment, which is a heavy tank, so you don't really care about your concealment. You do have 380 meters view range, though, which is pretty damn nice for a tier 7 heavy. And if you want to buff that up with optics and situational awareness, born leader, all that good stuff, you can definitely do that to get that view range up to a good level, and you will be able to spot for yourself at least, which is something you definitely want to do. You definitely want to get that as high as you can, because you are so slow that trying to cross a gap is painful, and you will get spotted most of the time if you try and make a move. So you want to be able to spot for yourself so that at least you can see what's shooting at you if you do get spotted trying to cross a gap, because it will take you a year to cross that gap. You have a 30 degree a second turret rotation speed, which is actually pretty quick. It's faster than the tracks, which is nice, and I buffed that up to make that even faster, just so I can get the gun on target as much as possible, because it is slow to turn the tracks. So it's a pain in the arse to be able to get the gun on target, pretty much. So I want to try and get this traverse to be faster. But yeah, so the 30 degrees a second isn't actually that bad. You got 2.69 meters of accuracy during rotation, which is awful because it is a derp gun. It's dreadful. You want to try and get that down with the snapshot perk, with steady aim, all that good stuff, because you definitely want to do that. You got 20 degrees of elevation, which means you can get the gun up. You don't have to worry about elevation problems whatsoever. You got 12.5 degrees of gun depression though, which I believe is 5 over the front or even 3 over the front, and you get all of this over the side of the tank. So if you're driving over towards a ridgeline, you want to try and drive at a ridgeline a bit more sideways on it or an angle so that you can actually get the gun depression, which is a bit of a problem with being on a ridgeline naturally, because that means your tracks or your frontal armor will probably end up getting exposed before you can actually get the gun on the target, because naturally you've got you've got a central mounted turret. You do have a 25-second reload though, which is really slow, because you are a derp gun naturally, but you can get that down to about 18 seconds, which is definitely quite nice. But at the same time, because of the alpha generally, you do feel very slow, especially when you're just derping people for 200. It can feel exceptionally slow, the reload, and not that nice. And like I say, this is again where it's a lot nicer to be in something like a Dreadnought or be in something like a KV2, because they actually have similar reloads and have higher alpha. So it's just something that you need to bear in mind, that you do have a very slow reload to go with your very, very slow tank. You've got a 0.56 accuracy at 100 meters, which, yeah, is not very good. It's very, very derpy, like this tank is in general. It's very, very derpy. You've got 2.38 accuracy during movement, which is, again, not that great. Actually, to be fair, though, for a derp gun, is not that bad, because a lot of derp guns tend to have like 3 to 4 accuracy during movement. 2.38 isn't actually that bad, but you definitely want to make that better if you can with run and gun and stuff like that. You do have a 3.7 second aim time, which is awful aim time. You might want to make that better with the GLD if you want to. It's down to you and how you set up the tank. But generally, I didn't really feel too much of a difference between having a GLD and not having one on the aim time of this tank. You have 2 rounds, which is HESH, which has 120mm of pen on the standard HESH and 155mm of pen on the premium HESH. Now, the premium HESH is actually pretty nice for penning quite a lot of the tanks that are lower tier than you, so you can use that 600 alpha quite nicely. This is where you want to use the ammo swapper so that you can switch between the better pen and the lower pen, so you can splash for more with 760 alpha on the standard rounds, but you can also have a better chance of penning things with that premium round. Things like Tigers and big boxy tanks that are fairly easy to hit the spot that you, or the flat plate that you want to hit, because obviously a lot of the tanks that have angled spots that you really do need to hit the weak spot, even with 155 pen, you're not really going to hit, because the accuracy on this tank is absolute garbage. You have 570 meters a second shell velocity on the standard round, which is slower than the premium round, which has 685 meters a second velocity. So if you want to fire at distance, sometimes it might actually be easier to fire the premium round. But bear in mind that it is very slow, and it is very derpy, just like most derp guns. But yeah, that's the statistics of the Churchill AVRE, and it's a 165mm L9A1 demolition gun. Like I say, on the whole, the stats aren't that great for it, and it is a very slow tank. It's very, very derpy. It does have a 145% silver bonus, by the way, and a 120% tank XP bonus. So yeah, it can make silver, but you don't want to rely on it for making silver a lot of the time, realistically, as a tier 7 premium tank. The armour, like you can see here, is a tier 6 heavy tank armour. It's just the same as the Churchill VII. And you can see 152 on that upper plate and on the turret front. 203 on those little cheek bits. 139 on that lower plate. It's exactly the same as the Churchill VII. Which means that, yeah, like I say, you are cannon fodder for tier 9s and tier 8s and even most tier 7s. And realistically, your armour is going to have any sort of decency against tier 5s. And tier 6 fire and premium will still butcher your armour. Which is a sad, sad time for the Churchill AVRE. So let's have a look in terms of a crew that I run on the tank. So, in terms of a crew, I have been running, accidentally, really, I've actually been running this crew on this Churchill AVRE. So, in terms of a crew on this tank, I've been running Born Leader, Rapid Reload, Sixth Sense, Situational Awareness, Rapid Aim, Supply Conservation, Run and Gun, Snapshot, Steady Aim. The 3 gun perks to make sure that this gun is as good as it humanly can be, because it is horrific, and I'm not kidding when I say that this gun is horrific. The Rapid Aim to try and get the gun on target more and more if I can, because like I say, because you are very slow, it's very slow to turn. I want to try and get the turret traverse to be even better so I can get this gun snapped on target and get ready to fire as quickly as I can do. Supply conservation was accidental. So most of the replays you're going to see are with supply conservation, because I have been using this exact crew. It's a very, very useful perk, and it will make your food run quicker and you make your repair kits come back quicker. But I would probably actually recommend you to run either clutch braking to make the track traverse better, so you get better track traverse, or track mechanic to be able to get the tracks back on, because the tracks do get blown off a lot on this tank. And if you want to get the tracks back on, it's probably for the best to be able to help it out to get those tracks back on, because you will be brawling a lot of this time in this tank, because the gun doesn't really work at distance, and you want to be trying to be kind of up close and personal if you can get there with the speed. And also, because of how slow it is when you're trying to cross gaps, a lot of the time when you get shot, you probably will end up losing the tracks. So again, you want to get the tracks back on as quick as you can, so you want to run track mechanic, something like that. But that's the general template that I run for the crew, which will make this tank feel somewhat decent. In terms of equipment on this tank, I do run food with the advanced loader, the optics, like I say, to make myself not blind, and the advanced reload. So the advanced loader, naturally to make my DPM 10% better, just so I can make the reload somewhat okay. The optics to be able to get my view range up as high as possible, again, like I say, so I can spot for myself, especially when I'm crossing distances and stuff like that. And the advanced reload, the ammo swapper, so that I can switch between the 2 rounds, because both rounds are very useful in different situations. And because of the long reload, I don't want to have to then reload a 155mm round with less alpha, and then be in a situation where I'd have just been better off loading the standard shell, because the tank that I was going to shoot the premium shell at is gone. And then I could splash, I need to splash for more, because I'm not going to pen it with either pen, and I need to actually splash for more damage, and thus that's why I run the advanced reload. I'd say you could run the traction system, get yourselves up to 27 kilometers an hour, but that's still exceptionally slow, and if we're honest, 2 kilometers an hour doesn't really make too much of a difference for this tank. So let's have a quick look at the stats fully equipped out on this tank. On this tank, with the fully equipped stats, we do have, like I say, the hull rotation hasn't moved any really, because we haven't helped it. Ground resistances have got a little bit better due to Born Leader and food and stuff like that. We've got 486 meters of view range now, which is really quite good for a tier 7 heavy, which means we'll be able to spot for ourselves, which is great. You've got a 36.49 degree a second turret rotation speed, which is now fantastic. That's really, really good. The turret traverses very, very fast for this tank, which is nice. We've got 2.24 accuracy during rotation, which is a little bit lower, but it's not dramatically lower because we don't have stuff like gun stabilizer. We've got an 18.23 second reload now, which is giving us like 2.5k DPM, but that's if you pen the rounds, realistically, because the DPM on this tank is kind of fake, because most of the time you will be splashing the rounds, which means you're doing 200 to 300 damage, and you're not going to be penning for the full 760, which is what the DPM is working out off of, if you know what I mean. So that's working out as if you were penning these 760 rounds all the time, which you're not going to be. So you've got 18.23 second reload, which, like I say, is still a little bit slow. You've got 0.45 accuracy now instead of 0.56, which is definitely better, but it's still really quite bad. You've got 1.7 accuracy during movement now, which is way better than the 2.4 it was. So the accuracy during movement on this tank isn't that horrendous, but it is still pretty bad. You got a 3.41 second aim time as well, which, again, is still really quite poor, because you could get that lower to about 3.2 with a GLD, but 3.4 is still really quite bad for your aim time, so it will take you a long time to get that gun aimed in on target, which is why I say, again, you're more likely to be up close and personal fighting the enemy team with this tank. But on the whole, I really don't think this tank is worth the, what is it, 6,350 gold that this tank is currently at in the store. I wouldn't spend that much gold on this tank. I would just wait and get a Dreadnought, or most people already have a Dreadnought, to be fair. But yeah, this tank I don't think is worth it, really. The only time you're going to have a good time is when people are silly and completely ignore you and just let you farm away. Other than that, if people look at you, yeah, you're just dead meat, unfortunately. But hopefully you'll see that from the replays, because we've got a couple of replays coming up for you, so you can watch this thing in action, so you can see how it handles, see how it goes, see some of the average games, and then see the best game that I've had in this tank so far. So without further ado, everybody, I'm going to send you over to the replays where you can see how this tank handles. I'll see you there. So here we are in the replays with the FV3903 Churchill VII AVRE. That is a real mouthful, but here we are with that tank, and yeah, we're on the first map, and it's a tier 8 game, and it's on at Uhlenberg, which means we're going to have a fair bit of driving to get to the front line. That is one of those things that this tank does have to suffer from, and that is the fact that it's very slow. It's very, very slow, which means it has the slow tank problem. That is, games pass it by sometimes, and by sometimes a lot. You will basically spend a lot of your time trundling to the front line, and by the time you get to the front line, most of your team is dead. And that is definitely a key problem for the Churchill AVRE, and it's a problem with all slow tanks in general. But for the AVRE, where you spend most of your time driving, and by the time you get to the front lines, you end up just getting absolutely eviscerated because your not your hit points, your armour doesn't hold up that well, and then you're only hitting people. I mean, the good thing is, naturally, for the tank, you don't really have to aim that much, because you can just slap the Derp rounds out and just do damage. So you don't have to expose yourself for too long. But if tanks do decide that you're going to die, yeah, you're going to die, which is obviously not great for you. But you're seeing it right now with the fact that we've currently lost 2 tanks already. We're 1 minute 20, and realistically, we've not had very far to drive, have we? We've driven, what, 100 metres, and our team is starting to bleed already. We're just aiming up our shot at the TNH 105-1000. Didn't wait for it to aim all the way because it felt like it was going to pull back, and unfortunately the shell just misses on that guy. And yeah, we're finally slowly getting there to get to this front line. It's like, yes, I'm going to be able to do something. Let's go. And the one thing I've experienced in this tank is that as a tier 7, I've been in very heavy tier 8 lobbies quite often, which means that, yeah, you're going to get smashed about by those tier 8s. But you can derp. Now, that's a very heavily armoured tier 8 heavy tank. And we splashed it for 336. Why did we splash it for 336? Because I aimed for the spot that has the weakest part of the armour, where we can splash down on top of the turret, which is the cupola. If you shoot the cupola, you're going to splash down on the weaker armour plate on top of the turret, which means you're going to do more damage with the splash. Which is why we aim for that. Which is why you also, if you have a big derp cannon, if you aim underneath the tank and splash their tracks underneath them, you will do a lot of splash damage to their underside as well, because naturally the underside of the tank has very weak plates, and thus your HE will basically splash and do more damage. So it's always a handy tip to have if you are a derp gun, and that is that if you can aim underneath the tank, if you know you're not going to pen it, you're best to shoot underneath it. Try and shoot the tracks on underneath. You'll splash for a good amount, and you'll probably track them as well. And that's just a way of doing some damage. So right there, we managed to shut down the KV-85, who came in to try and get behind my AT. Bit of poor driving there, crashing into that AT-15. But we're going to still try and help this guy out as much as we can. Try and just keep whittling the damage in on this VK. We go for the cupola there, and unfortunately the gun does derp, and it flies straight over. Because that's what happens. The VK drives forward and finally gets a shot straight through our front. We're up to 1200 damage so far with 104 assistance, and yeah, the game's not looking good, is it? We are 9-4 at the minute, and this is where you can see I'm aiming underneath the tank, we splash it for 313, and we track it in place. It's something that you want to do with these big derp guns. It's something that's really handy to do in something like a Type 5 heavy. When you've got that sort of big derp gun, you can aim underneath the tank, splash it, because you're not really going to pen a lot of the tanks with that HE round, and then thus you can do quite a lot of damage with the splash, and you can also track them in place. So we're in an awkward standoff now with this VK. This VK wants me quite heavily, but we're using the dead wreck of the KV-85 to keep it so that it's very, very difficult for this guy to even get a shot at us. Because you have to, I mean, you do have to play carefully, right? We are at tier 7 in a tier 8 game. He ends up taking a hit, and we splash him to death for 93. I'm going to finish off that VK 101p there. I thought he was definitely going to come and kill me when he started coming in towards us there, but he played it pretty poorly, and that meant that he ended up not being able to get a shot at us, and thus we managed to survive it. We're just about getting the gun in, and unfortunately, this is where we start getting shot in the rear. The Earthshaker gets a shot into us, and the IS finishes us off. And unfortunately, we lose that game there with the defeat. 2 kills, 1874 damage, 104 assistance. The 681 base XP on a loss, which is not very good. Generally not that good of a game, but to be honest, that's my average experience of this tank. Right there, we managed to finally trundle our way to the front line, and then everything's dead. Or everything dies, I should say, very, very quickly. All of a sudden, my team's gone, and yeah, we lose. Or it's the other way around, and you get a game like this, where you do manage to finally get to the front line, and then by the time you manage to get a few shots off, their team's dead, and you've basically done nothing. Most of the time, when I've done quite a lot of damage in this tank, it's been games where my team dies very quickly, but I manage to take a position where I can just keep firing, essentially. And I can just keep farming until they finally actually come for me and I die. Or it's I just get completely ignored, and then tanks that I can actually pen just drive out in front of you and go, okay, shoot me. And it's like, thanks. Okay, sure, I will. And that's what happens, and that's what you can see from the best game. But yeah, on steps, so far we're in a tier 8 game, and I've saved you some of the driving because, yeah, you don't need to see the tank driving for 2 minutes to know it's slow. And we finally got to the front lines within, what, 1.5 minutes, which, it's steps. Steps isn't that big. We go for a shot there on the Tiger 1. I used the ammo swapper, but I was like, do I use the premium HE round and have the better pen, or do I splash in? I thought, you know what? No, the Tiger's got 280 odd hit points. I'm probably going to be able to splash him to death with the standard round. I don't want to waste, or I don't want to fire the premium round, because obviously that's going to cost me some money. And unfortunately, we did splash the Tiger 1 there, but didn't kill him. So it would have probably been better to fire the premium round and guarantee the pen on the big boxy Tiger. The Icebreaker drives around and slaps a big shell into us. I say, realistically, tier 8s are just going to drive around and slap a shot in, and they will pen you. The Sternpanzer gives us a shot straight through his lower plate, which we're going to take that every single day. Thank you, Mr. Sternpanzer. And we slap the shot in for 400 odd, because we do have 120 pen. So lower plates of things like Panthers, Sternpanzers, if they give it to you and let you have a free shot into it, you're going to go through it. Anything that's lightly armoured as well, you know, if you don't hit an angled plate, that's where you're really going to hurt them. But most of the time, you're going to hurt them if they just drive out in front of you, because that's the only way you, especially in a Churchill AVRE, you can't really engineer the positions to get free, easy shots into the tanks that are mobile. So you really have to have them drive in front of you, pretty much, to be able to get the damage. So you can see here, this is the gun depression. This is another reason why I wanted to use this replay. This is the gun depression here of the AVRE. We didn't have the gun depression whatsoever for this Churchill to get shots on the Chrysler K. But you can see, as soon as we turn to our side, we do have the gun depression. We go for the shot into the track there to track him in place. Hopefully we get some assistance. We do track that Chrysler in place, which is glorious. And then our team start to shoot it. Hopefully shoot some more so I can get some assistance. That'd be great. There we go. We get all of the assistance there on the tracking from that Chrysler K. Did about 200 odd damage as well. I'd say this is what generally it seems to averagely splash, unless I get like a really weak plate and shoot it. Now we're shooting at an AT7. It's like, come on, AT7. The gun depression being awkward there, but we turn to our side, and we get the shot into the side of that AT7, 302, track it in place, but he gets shot down by the Viper after repairing his tracks. We're up to 1600 damage with 963 assistance. The other two tanks are on the opposite side of the map, which means likelihood is we are not going to get there to get a shot at that guy. And sadly, that's true. And I'm looking at that M56 Scorpion like, I wish you were on the enemy team so I could pen you and I could do damage. Why? And as you can see, we're trundling, and the Panther 2 on the enemy team gets shut down. And again, that's just another average experience for me in this Churchill AVRE, where we managed to get to the front line. We did 1600 damage and 963 assistance. With the second class, the Confederate, 1381 base XP. We managed to get to the front line, but then their team just sort of wilted, and we managed to do just about 1600 damage, but, you know, once we'd done the 1600 damage on the tanks that were in front of us, because that's about all we managed to get off before they died, the enemy team was on the opposite side of the map, and then they all die before you end up managing to get there. Obviously, it's a different story if you manage to get tanks that you can pen, though, and this third replay is what I've generally experienced when I've managed to do more damage, essentially. This has actually been more of my average game where it's like, oh, I've actually managed to get some shots in that pen things, and I managed to get some damage in before going down. And that is what this is. And we're on Hellfire Pass, and again, it's a tier 8 game, because generally, that's pretty much what I've had playing this tank. It's mostly been tier 7 and tier 8 games, right? Where half the enemy team's tier 7 and then half of it's tier 8. And I very rarely have actually seen tier 6s or even tier 5s in this tank. For the most part, it's been +1. And yeah, we are now in a position where we've managed to trundle straight through the buildings. We've got to this corner at G6, G7, and we've got some free shots. We took a shot at that Churchill AVRE, opposing Churchill AVRE, and you can just see me looking at that UDES going, oh, I wish I hadn't fired. I just wish I'd been able to shoot that UDES. We'd have had a free shot at his ass. We'd have been able to pen it and do some serious damage. But it is what it is. We get another shot into the Churchill AVRE, and he ends up getting shut down by the Emil 1951. Now the heavy tanks in front of me are starting to push, and it's like, okay, oh, stay side on, go on then. If we manage to avoid his tracks, we can pen this guy. Yes! Oh, we penned it for like 700, I think it was 790 odd, because the unskinned Sergeant Slaughter managed to actually pen it as well at the same time, which leaves this guy on just 21 hit points, but we don't want him to live because he'll damage us for quite a lot, and we end up shutting down that 53 TP with a splash. We're up to 1800 damage, and that's where I say again, it's just like any normal derp cannon that punishes stupidity, really. That 53 TP just drove sideways on in front of our gun and went, shoot me, go on, do it, and we're like, well, don't mind if I do. And we managed to actually pen him in the side, which was, again, quite lucky, realistically, because a lot of that side is spaced armour, so a lot of that could have ended up just splashing and doing track damage. But we've managed to get the reload in. Now we've got a shot into the Hydra who drove out, and at this point, it's like, oh boy, we're all alone. That's it. We're doomed. We're doomed. And I'm just looking at what can I shoot next. This Challenger, I want to do it because I can pen it. There we go. We managed to get the pen into the 645 on the Challenger because, again, we knew we could pen it. We may as well shoot at it. And we finally get shut down by the Hydra. And unfortunately, again, we finished with the defeat. 2.7k damage, 657 assistance. The third class, 851 base XP on a loss. A pretty okay game, actually, for the Churchill AVRE there, but it's just sadly a loss. And that was, again, we just managed to do damage because the enemy team were being overconfident and driving out in front of us, and we managed to just keep derping them and getting those shots that, like the pen on the Challenger was being aggressive because he was like, oh, I need to get the damage off because my team's about to kill this guy, and thus he gave us a free shot that we managed to put straight through his turret. And that's because some of the tanks we faced there were fairly squishy, and then some of them also, like the 53 TP, just gave us a free shot into the side, and it's like, okay then. But against a tank like the Hydra, we basically couldn't, unless we got his rear, we basically were never going to do any damage to that guy. We were doing like 200 on a splash, if that. against him, which just means that, yeah, it's tier 7 versus tier 8, right? You're just going to get wrecked. And that's the sad thing, is that because it's slow and it's got no armour, if you get yourselves into a position like that, where we managed to get some good damage out, but then all of a sudden they started to push quite aggressively and my team wilted in the position we were in, there's no chance for me to ever get out. So once I'm in a position, that is my position, and that's what you find with something like the Churchill AVRE, is that once you find a position, it works, you are basically there, and that is your place, and that's that. And even if it doesn't work, that is still it. If you get yourselves into any sort of position that gets you caught out and stuff like that, yeah, it's just game over. And we're on to the fourth and final replay of this video, and this is the best game I've had in this tank. And we are on Fisherman's Bay. We've taken up this position here in the middle because we can, from this position, get shots in towards the town, we can get shots across the field, and we can shoot the people that are actually sitting at K2 too as well if we... K2 too? Wow, yeah. K22! No, K2 as well, so that we can actually get damage into them. So this position can be quite useful. We got our first shot off towards a Tiger 1 and did 287. I was kind of disappointed that the shot didn't go in. We can see this IKV, and again, because we don't have that good of a shell velocity, we can actually auto-aim and fire over the ridgeline. So we try and get the auto-aim and fire into that IKV, and unfortunately, the shot doesn't go anywhere near. The Batchat 12T managed to get a shot into us as he was crossing over, which, again, because he's not really going to bounce on us, he managed to easily pen us. We've got a shot at this Churchill 1 behind us, so we go for the splash there into the Churchill 1, which we managed to actually get in. We're trying to help this heavy tank behind us as much as we can from this position. Just waiting for the reload, and the Hydra ends up shutting down that Churchill 1. So now we're nearly reloaded. It's like, can we get a shot into the side of this Stone Cold? This Stone Cold is ignoring me. Ooh. Go on then. We can see the side of his turret. We can pen that with our standard HE. And oh, yes, 691. The shot goes straight in. And we do a big amount of damage to the side of that tier 8 medium tank. Like I say, if you catch things out and they haven't got a clue what's going off, you can do some pretty hefty damage to them. And you do get that derp good feeling, right? When it does actually go in. Because it's not like an AVRE that it's like, oh, I penned it, oh, you know, whatever. When you do pen things with this tank, you do go, oh, that was nice. Because it doesn't happen realistically all that often unless it's against tier 5s and tier 6s. So you get that real derp feel good. And penning that guy twice was just pure filth. We're up to 625 damage. We've now got a shot into the side of the T28. Oh, that's going to fly straight in. 644. Yes! Let's go. Because we had the side of that guy, 120 pen was going to go in. And again, that's where this tank can be pretty decent. When things ignore you and they give you their soft underbelly, essentially, you're going to have a good time. So we go for the leading blind shot there on the IKV, and we end up missing. And just as we do it, naturally, the Stirrer Mill gets spotted out in the open. Of course he does. That would have been a free derp shot if ever I've seen it, a free pen, but hey, it's unfortunate. We're now trying to get the shot on this Batchat 12T. He's driving along. We lead it as much as we can, and we do hit it as well. We don't pen it, but we do hit it for 178, track it in place, so we get a little bit of assistance on it. We're now being detected, which means we're being looked at from the back, which is something we've got to be very, very careful of. But once again, I want to try and help this TD out. That is at F8, if I can. There's a Tiger 1 down here, so I'm looking at it going, oh, I can pen that. We load the premium hash with the advanced reload there so that we can pen the Tiger 1 guaranteed, and we pen it for 614. The shot there could have actually gone in with standard hash, if we're honest, because of the side shot that he gave us, but I thought he wasn't going to give us that. Now we've got the T34-100, he's not even paying attention, and we slapped the shot in for 765 high roll and shut down that tier 7 medium tank. He just didn't... This is what I mean. This is the best game I've had in this tank, and this is because we've just been ignored. We've been ignored in this position, and we've just managed to farm out the damage so much. Like, people have just given us free pens. Like, that's what the T34-100 did, which is where I'm saying, you know, realistically, to do the damage, you just got to kind of get a bit lucky. I mean, we've put us... Yeah, sure. We've put ourselves in a good position, which is always the good thing, right? But from that position, we've just had people ignore us. And realistically, the position that we took as well was aggressive. And a lot of the time, you cannot take that position because there'll be lots of things at the back that basically punish you every time you poke. So like when we shut down the Stone Cold, for example, we were very aggressive in poking out sideways on to get the gun depression to be able to actually get the shot into that stone cold. And a lot of the time, in a normal game, they probably would have killed us doing that. And now we're pushing the tempo towards this Tiger II and these TDs at the back. And we get a shot for 350 odd into that Tiger II sight. That was a pretty good high roll. And this Tiger II, at this point I was thinking, oh, you know what, I'll just go in and get a shot or two into the Tiger II before he dies. He's actually firing HE. He's actually firing HE, and that means that he's not really going to do much damage to us, and we're managing to get all the splash damages into him. We tracked him in place because I was hoping that my team would actually track it, but waiting for the reload. And this is where the long reload comes into play, because just as we actually finally do reload, the Tiger II gets shut down. But we finished the game with a really great total for a Tier 7 heavy tank. We finished with the victory. 3 kills, 4.3k damage, 503 assistance, ace tank of the high caliber, 2.1k base XP. A really great game for the Churchill VII AVRE. Thanks for bearing with me and my coughing and the slight pauses in audio every now and then because, yes, I was coughing a lot. And thank you very much for watching this video. That is the Churchill AVRE. It's not the greatest of tanks, and I would not recommend buying it. I would just recommend buying a Dreadnought instead. So as always, everybody, thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time.
A great success!